Okay, hello everyone. Welcome officially to our April STEM Talks. We are very, very excited for the topic of the STEM Talks today, and that is medicine. We know a lot of you have been asking for a career panel on this topic, so we have decided to give in, and here you are. We're excited to be then focusing on medicine for April. So if you've not been to one of our events before, this is essentially how it works. We are going to have three individuals that work in the medical field. They will first introduce themselves, talk about how they got to where they are, and what they currently do at UHN. And then after all of them present, we are going to have the open Q&A period. So we were going to cover questions that you submitted beforehand, but you can also ask questions live using the Q&A feature of the webinar. So if you look at the kind of the bottom of the Zoom panel, you'll see a Q&A button. Submit all your questions there, and we're going to try our best to get to as many as we can over the course of the next hour. As you can see, I am recording the session, so try not to unmute yourself, put yourself on camera or anything so you're not in the recording for later. And we will share this link with you afterward if you want to watch it back or if you missed any part of it live. In order for you to be eligible for a certificate program, if you are participating in that, all you have to do is fully attend this event and do our exit Zoom poll. So at the end of the session, we're just going to ask you a little bit about what happened today. Were you listening to our panelists? As long as you have tried your best, that will count as credit for the certificate program, and you're good to go. So before we though start the event, we do have also welcome Zoom polls. So if you could complete this as well, we just want to know who is in the call today. Have you been to one of our events before? Do you want to go to medical school? Do you like medicine? Have you done any healthcare related placement internship before? We just want to generally again know who's listening to us and who is interested in this field. So please fill that out. And for the sake of time, we're just going to start the career panel chat. So Jane, whenever you are ready, take over screen share and then talk about your current status as a person in medicine.
Good. Are you all seeing my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So my name is Jane. I'm a third year medical student at the University of Toronto. So in my name, it says CC3, which means clinical clerk 3. And clinical clerk basically means that I'm in my clerkship rotation. So going through all the different specialties in medicine, family medicine, psychiatry, surgery. And they do this for all medical students to make sure we get a good idea of what's out there in terms of figuring out what our career is going to be. I'm also a part of our school's medical society as one of the co-presidents, so happy to talk about some of the leadership opportunities that are available in medical school as well. A bit of my background, I'm from Mississauga, Ontario. I moved to Toronto for medical school in 2022, and I've been working at UHN since 2023. So you can see some of my IDs here. The first one was from my first year summer, where I was a summer student at the Wilson Center for Research and Education, because that's one of my areas of interest is medical education. And then the second one is from this past summer, where I was a research student in the radiation medicine program, because I'm also passionate about cancer care as well. So those are both great opportunities. And then I still volunteer at UHN in the same program, supporting some of those same research projects. And then outside of medical school, I enjoy Pilates and long distance running. This is a picture of myself and my two friends, and one of who is a pediatrics resident at McMaster University, and the other one is my classmate, Christian. And the three of us ran the Toronto Marathon together just this past October. In terms of my education, I did 5 years at McMaster University, where I did the Bachelor of Health Sciences program for 4 years, and then I continued to do some graduate school as well. So I did the Master of Science program in HRM, or Health Research Methodology. And I had a really great experience there and got to build some of those foundational research skills that I've continued to grow as a medical student. And then here's a picture of myself as a first year student. All of us are wearing these yellow t-shirts, and then the leaders who were second or third year undergrad students were wearing the purple shirts here. And this was one of our orientations that we had, a really great experience. And then next to that, this is my UFT class. We're divided into different academies based on different hospital sites. So I'm based at Sunnybrook Hospital. So these are all the students in my class, about 60 of us who are at Sunnybrook. And this was our first day of our third year. So I'm currently in my third year, one more year to go. of the MD program. And then I did a few certificate programs similar to what you all are doing with UHN STEM Pathways. One of them was in quality improvement in my first year, and then I did the student at teachers program, learning about how to be a teacher in the medical space. And that was also really cool to learn how to teach. Where I am right now is my pediatrics rotation. This is a picture of the lobby at Sick Kids Hospital. I'm about halfway through my clinical rotations now. I've finished my inpatient rotation, and now I'm in the community in Etobicoke, where I'm getting to see the differences between community practice and an academic tertiary site inpatient unit. And I'm learning a lot about kind of the differences there and how much variety there is within one specialty. And then next, I'm going to family medicine, I'll do psychiatry, OB/GYN, and then some electives that I have some as well. This is what a week in a life looks like. So I picked this from a week in March. So I did some reformer Pilates in the morning in Yorkville, which is near where I live. And then I had a 10-hour day at Sick Kids. So we start at 7:30, where I read about the patients that I have for that day. And then at 8, we all discuss the plans and things that happened overnight for the patients we're taking care of, and any loose ends that needed to be tied up. So the team is led by a senior resident who is, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 years ahead of me in training. And they would tell me what the tasks are for those patients. I would ask them any questions I had. And then we'd go see the patients on our own, chat with the families, see what concerns they have, what kind of things need to be changed for the day. And then we do interdisciplinary rounds. So we have a big group with a pharmacist, allied health, nursing team, occupational therapy. It's a great group of interdisciplinary people who are there to help the patients. And we have a dietitian as well at the kids, which is really helpful. And then we all talk together, make the plan, and then there's teaching and different opportunities during the day at lunch. And then we round again, talk about the patients again, and then hand over to the night team at 5 o'clock. So the day tends to be about 10 hours. And then I do the same thing every day that week. On Tuesday, I was able to go on a run with my friend, and we went to get bubble tea, which was fun. Wednesday was the same kind of schedule. Same thing on Thursday. Got to do another run on Thursday. And then on Friday, got to do another workout. And then I had a 26-hour call. So this is basically where you're working throughout the day and then you're on call at night. So you hand over to the night team, but then you join that team. And then whenever there's a patient in in the emergency department who should be admitted to pediatrics, you'll go and see them, kind of get the history of what happened, do a physical exam, come up with some ideas of what might be going on with that patient, and then you talk to the resident, and they kind of coach you through what the next steps should be. And then you hand over to the day team in the morning, and we get an on-call room. And we do these very infrequently in medical schools just to give us a sense of what it'd be like to be a doctor covering the inpatient ward at night. And so we've only done 2 of these throughout our 6-week rotation. And so it's pretty manageable, but just to give us a sense of what it's like. And then we get the next day off. In terms of next steps, like I mentioned, I'm passionate about cancer care, so I want to be a radiation oncologist. So I'll be applying for residency programs in this fall. And then I have some clinical electives coming up across the country. So I'm hoping to go to British Columbia, for instance, to get a sense of what training might be like there. And then I have some conferences I'm going to as well to meet different people who are doing some cool research. So the European conference is in May, and then the Canadian conference is in September. There's also an American one in October, but I won't be going to that one. And then the applications are due in November, and then there's interviews. So pretty tight kind of timeline with lots of things going on, but looking forward to kind of the next stage. Happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Jane. David, you are up next, so take over screen share.
Hi, I'm Dr. David Esho. I'm a family doctor and a hospitalist. So Most people's experience with the healthcare system typically is with their family doctor. It's the doctor you see kind of regularly when you need your checkups, when you're sick. I'm also a hospitalist, which means that I take care of patients who are acutely ill and admitted to hospital and need a little bit more monitoring or special tests or are just basically too sick to go home. I work at the University Health Network, and I've been here for about 15 years now. A little bit about my background. So I'm from Toronto, born and raised. I've been working at the UHN for 15 years. That includes doing my residency. So before you kind of fully graduate and become a independent practicing doctor, you do training with senior doctors in order to develop the skills specifically to the specialty that you want to do. And something about me in particular is I really enjoy traveling. So this is a picture of me with my family at Disney World from last summer. This is a picture of a trip I did to Haiti where I was actually able to work with a small NGO teaching local healthcare providers how to provide well woman care and obstetric care. And that's one of the things that I love about medicine is it opens the door for you to do things not only like in your community, but nationally and internationally as well. And, you have such a unique and in-demand skill set that literally you can work anywhere in the world. So how did I get here? So education, I did my undergraduate degree at Western University. I was there from 2000 to 2004. I did a double major, so I basically did two parallel degrees at the same time in cell biology as well as genetics. The reason I did that was, I've always had a strong attraction to life sciences, and that program really allowed me to kind of explore that interest. And as I was kind of refining my long-term career goals, it really gave me a good foundation to go into medicine. After finishing my undergrad degree, I went to medical school at the University of Toronto, and this is a picture of the medical sciences building that's in downtown Toronto. For us, medical school is about 4 years, so from 2004 to 2008. It's different across the country. There are some schools that only have 3 years of medical school versus 4 years of medical school. And then after completing medical school, once again, I mentioned do your residency training. So that's when finishing medical school, you're a doctor, but you're not a doctor who's trained to actually take care of patients. You have to spend somewhere between 2 to 5+ years learning the specific skills to become an orthopedic surgeon or a family doctor or a radiation oncologist, for example. So what do I do right now? So right now I'm considered a staff physician at Toronto Western Hospital. There's a picture of my hospital right here. I provide full scope primary care, which means I take care of people from birth until death, essentially. That involves doing well baby care, doing immunizations, seeing people for checkups. I also do some end of life care with my patients, home care supports. And on top of that, I also am involved in, as I mentioned before, doing that inpatient care of acutely ill people as well. That's kind of one side of my job. The other side of my job is I'm what we call like an academic physician or a clinician educator. And that means essentially that I work at the University of Toronto as well. And in that role, I spend a significant amount of time teaching medical trainees at various stages, all the way from medical students to residents and fellows. Fellowship is a time when after you finish your primary residency training, you do like basically extra subspecialized care in a subfield of medicine. So for example, being a hospitalist is a subspecialty of family medicine. So what does my life look like week to week? I put this picture here because, there are times where I feel like I'm doing literally 18 things all at the same time. There's a high amount of variability in what I do week to week and day to day. So typically I run my clinics Monday to Friday. I usually start at 9 in the morning and I end at whenever the day is done. And that really does point to the fact that, like, in medicine, unlike a lot of other fields, you never know what's going to come in. So, some days it's very straightforward care. Other days it's people in situational crises, emotional crises. Sometimes I'm breaking bad news to patients and their families. And really it's acknowledging that, like, some days my days go longer than I'd like them to, generally speaking, when I'm doing my clinical days, my outpatient clinical days, usually it's about 9 to 5, 9 to 6. On my inpatient care days, so that's when I'm rounding in the hospital, I typically start at 8 in the morning. We start by reviewing what happened to the patients overnight that are assigned to my team. I meet with my residents. We kind of plan the day. We decide who is going to see which patient. We typically do some teaching, so I'll kind of teach them around topics that are important for them to learn during that rotation. We spend the day seeing patients. We take new consultations for new patients who have been recently admitted to the emerge. We kind of wrap up the end of the day, discharge the patients that need to go home, plan the day ahead, and hopefully we're out of the hospital by 6. It doesn't always happen, but we try our best. My teaching typically happens 2 to 3 times per week, and that usually involves me teaching learners in various settings, whether that's more of a classroom setting that you're used to, whether that's more of a kind of apprenticeship on the job at the bedside, or doing more of a advisory or supervisory role where it's more of a mentorship and an advice type position. I'm also involved in several community outreach activities. I think it's very important to give back. So, there are various organizations I work with that advocate for like health in the Black community. And I often go out and do talks in churches or in community centers or other community healthcare centers where they need physician support. I think no matter what I'm doing, my number one rule is always make time for yourself and make time for your family. So, I grew up as a latchkey kid, so I was very aware of my parents not being around as much as I would have liked. So, my rule is always, as best as I can, I try to get home before my kids go to sleep so that I'm able to be there to ask them about their day, read them a story, and tuck them in at night. And then, what I've learned through my years of doing medicine is really medicine is a marathon and not a sprint. So you do need to take care of yourself. So, that for me is making sure I'm getting exercise, making sure I'm getting sleep, making sure I'm making time for myself, doing things that I enjoy. Why did I choose my career? So, the main reason I chose not only medicine, but specifically family medicine was the flexibility and the control over my practice. So I really get to choose what I do and what I don't want to do. I have the ability to kind of mix together a bunch of different skill sets. So I really am a bit of a jack of all trades. And, I do a little bit of well women's care, well baby care. I do a bit of palliative medicine. I do a little bit of mental health. I do my hospitalist. So really the fact that I can kind of pick and choose and assemble a skill set that kind of brings me joy really keeps me coming back. I really do enjoy the strong connections I have with my patients. So, I've had patients in my practice for almost 15 years now. I've watched them have their own kids. I've watched those kids start to grow up. And you really form a truly special bond with your patients when you kind of live their lives with them. And then, teaching is really important to me. So I really do enjoy the teaching aspect of my job, the mentorship that I'm allowed to do. And talking to students kind of like I'm doing today, it's really brings me passion and brings me joy.
Thanks, David. We love the mentorship teaching. This is very useful, we think. Hence our program. All right, Griselda, you are the last one up, so take over screen share whenever you are ready.
Everyone, good afternoon. Nice to meet you all. My name is Griselda. I'm currently a clinical research fellow for palliative medicine, particularly staying at Princess Margaret Cancer Center, but I also do some rotations and duties at the different sites like Toronto General and Toronto Western when I'm on call. So a little bit about myself. So originally I came from the Philippines, born and raised in the Philippines. I came to Toronto way back in 2023 when I started my clinical fellowship. So I enjoy mostly listening to people's stories and traveling, as you can see here in this slide. So I've been to different areas and as you may have noticed, I really love the water. So as I mentioned, I was educated from the Philippines. I did my Bachelor of Science in Public Health. I also did my Doctor of Medicine in the University of the City of Manila. And I did my residency training for family and community medicine in the University of the Philippines. I moved to Canada to do my clinical fellowship in palliative medicine from 2023 to 2024. And I'm currently doing my clinical research fellowship training after that. So currently, I'm in my first year of the clinical research fellowship of 1 of 2 years. And I recently started a new role in the department division in the life. So I would say no week really looks the same. It could be variable, as Dr. Escher shared earlier. In medicine, it could be like there are days when it could be so calm and controlled, and there are days that it can be very, very crazy. So it's what I do is a mix of an academic research work, and I have my clinical days of work. So well, it would be a mix of 60% academic research and 40% clinical, but that's theoretically what is on paper, but what happens in a day could be really variable. I have a little table here showing what this week would look like for me because I am on call. Today is a clinic day with patient recruitment as part of our research, and tomorrow would be more of patient recruitment and lecture and many meetings. Towards the end of the week, I'll be on hospital duty on call 24/7 and hopefully get to enjoy 1 week of leave next week. So also like admin tasks is also part of my job right now as like AKA putting out fires. And then lastly, why I chose this career, I'd say palliative medicine is a subspecialty of medicine that many people, many like even in medicine, many people are not really familiar about it. But we're trying over the last 2 decades, the palliative medicine has been emerging as a part of an important layer of care for patients and families dealing with any serious health-related suffering. And I feel like because of my family's experience and in general um, how the specialty allowed me to connect more with my patients and how it shaped my kind of pathway after family and community medicine. I've been privileged to meet lots of good mentors who also helped me like kind of direct the career path choices I made that led me here to Canada. So in terms of next steps, still a work in progress and still figuring it out. I still have another year to continue with a fellowship. So that's it on my end.
Thanks, Griselda. Well, that is the analyst intro. So what we're going to do is now we are going to start the Q&A portion of this session. So I'm going to bring us all on screen. Okay, I'm on screen. Excellent. Okay, so again, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A button of the chat. We're going to try to cover as much as we can over the next 35-ish minutes. All right, but the first question I see that I've seen a lot, even pre-submitted, you kind of already started answering it, but it's why medicine? Did you consider other pathways? Did you consider going into like the industry pathway or going into other allied health professions? Students want to know how that was the choice you made and why you made that choice. And maybe we can go in order of speakers to make it simpler. So Jane, tell us.
Yeah, I definitely considered other healthcare fields. When I was in my undergrad, I really enjoyed clinical psychology and I worked and I did some research with a clinical psychologist. And I thought, that it was really cool and I was very interested by that. So you might find yourself interested in different adjacent fields that all kind of work together. And I think that makes a lot of sense because they do a lot of similar work. I unfortunately had a family member that went through a difficult healthcare experience where their physician was a big part of them being able to get a diagnosis that really ended up providing them with the cure that saved their life. And I think seeing that therapeutic relationship between my family member and the physician inspired me to want to hold a similar experience. And I've talked to a lot of medical students, and it seems like a common thread that our personal experiences in healthcare, whether positive or negative, inspires us either to be like that good doctor that's able to like help people in very vulnerable and difficult times of their life, or not be the kind of doctor who doesn't listen to them, and it kind of shows you kind of the path. And that was very unexpected for me. And then I ended up doing the MCAT and taking all of those steps to doing medicine. But honestly, I could see myself being like equally as happy doing another career, but within the same realm. I also thought about occupational therapy. I thought about respiratory therapy as other careers. So I really encourage you to continue to go to these events to figure out which of those kind of niche career opportunities would be right for you. Because I don't think there's like one path that is like the best in my opinion.
David, what about you?
I think for me, it was kind of the opposite. So, the story that my mom tells me, and maybe she's brainwashing me, is that I was 3 years old and I said to her, I want to be a doctor. And I think, for my whole life, that was really the through path of what I wanted to do. So, I spent a lot of time looking at other careers to say, like, do I want to do this instead? Why do I want to do this? And, like, so I thought about whether I wanted to go into like IT. At one point, I thought I was maybe going to go into the games industry, but it just like it didn't have that same spark for me. Even during my undergrad, like really spending a lot of time doing like bench research. And, before I got into medical school, I had already been accepted into my master's and likely would have gone down the pathway of probably becoming a university professor. As, I mentioned in my slides, like teaching is a big passion for me. So I probably would have ended up teaching along those lines. But it really always came back to like, no matter what else I was doing, it was really because I wanted to do medicine. I was like, this would be good skills to have if I eventually wanted to be a physician. So like, that's where I really kind of figured out that, it's probably the right spot for me.
And Griselda, what about you?
Well, my story is like similar to Dr. David. I remember when I was a little girl, I really said I wanted to be a pediatrician or something along that line. Maybe if also with influence of family, I have some uncles and aunt who's also in the medical field, some also relatives who are in the nursing field. So it's a um, big factor. And then when I went into like college and university, like the after post grad, I was like, I can't see myself doing anything else, and that like kind of gave it all away.
Okay. I think maybe we just go into a lot of the medical school questions and just get those out of the way because we're getting a lot of those and we'll go back to your day-to-day lives. All right, question number one that I'm seeing everywhere constantly. What extracurriculars should I be doing right now? As a high school student, what should I be doing if I do want to go into medical school, into the medical field one day? Maybe Jane, you start because you were more closest to high school. So let us know.
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. When I was in high school, I didn't think that I would be taking this career path, so I didn't have that kind of in my mind of, oh, let me do these sorts of activities in order to get there. But I think it's really good to start building some of those skills of like caretaking because it really does help you. So I did like the classic hospital volunteering. So like I said, I'm from South Ontario, so I volunteered at the Trillium Health Partners. And even though I didn't have a very like patient facing like clinical care sort of role because I was in high school, it's still like interacting with people who are going through very difficult times and knowing how to communicate and things like that is something you'll definitely learn. I also volunteered at a retirement home as well, which I found like building that therapeutic relationship with the clients there was something that I really enjoyed doing. I also loved the arts and I something I continue to do to this day. So I worked at the Living Arts Center and I worked with kids there and I learned that I really enjoy working with kids. So I think my future career will be pediatric to some extent of like one of the groups of patients I work with because I really enjoy it. Um, I think like think about service sort of extracurriculars that you can do where you're really building on some of those skills that you could use, whether in medical school or in another field that you do. If you love sports, like working in a team, like medicine is very team-based thing. So you can learn how to be a good team member early on. It's going to serve you well, regardless of what career you kind of do. But I don't think when I actually applied to medical school, I talked about any of those extracurriculars in particular. I spoke about more of my undergrad ones. But they definitely, like those skills definitely passed on. But I didn't say, these are the things I did in high school. You don't have to worry about like stacking that list or anything like that at this stage, but do it more for the skills, I would say.
Anybody want to add anything? David, what extracurriculars do you want someone to have?
So, one of the other things I do in my role is actually I interview for medical school. So basically kind of to pick candidates. And what I would say is pick extracurriculars that you're passionate about, things that, yes, as Jane said, like, that enhance your skill sets that will kind of, help you be a better leader, a better carer. But I'd rather you tell me about a cool opportunity you had as like the co-captain of your soccer team than telling me that you went to volunteer at a hospital and you pushed on them up and you didn't really care that you were there, right? Like between the two, you will have like the stories you get out of the extracurriculars that like you're passionate about and that like to build those skill sets are more important. So like do extracurriculars, try to pick things that will enhance your skills. Don't worry so much about it must be directly in the field of medicine.
All right. Chriselle, anything to add? I think they covered a lot of them, but anything you want to
They
add?
did. Yeah. I just want to add, like, enjoy your high school, like, enjoy your youth because it's actually a time looking back, it's something, it's the best, I think, one of the best periods of one's life. Because when you enter undergrad, when you enter postgrad, these things, it's going to get serious. So enjoy your life the most because it's the happiest moments. That's what I want to add.
It's good. Good. Enjoy the sun if we don't get snow, but enjoy it. All right, continuing on the medical school pathway. A lot of them are asking, does my undergrad program matter? Should I go into kin? Should I go into life science? Does it matter what program I pursue before considering medical school? Maybe David, you are again the expert. Do you care about the undergrad
So
program?
it actually doesn't. Okay, so it's a bit school to school dependent, but generally speaking, you have to meet the prerequisites of the medical school. So they may say you have to have 2 chemistry courses, 1 biology course, 1 non-science. So they'll have requirements, and then they'll basically say like, besides that, take whatever degree you want. So like in my medical school class, I had an architect, I had a mathematician, I had somebody who did kin. So like there was a lot of people who came out of life science or biological sciences. So like there's a wide spectrum, but like I said, as long as you have the prerequisites, it doesn't really matter what your degree is.
Excellent. Next question. Maybe Jane, because you were the most recent starting this pathway. Is the amount of years of education intimidating? Were you intimidated when you decided that you were going in this pathway?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually never, I never thought about it, to be honest with you. Um, I think in a sense it's reassuring as well because, like Dr. Isha was talking about earlier, like you're always working with your seniors so that you'll be comfortable and competent by the time that you're an independent practicing doctor. So it's kind of nice that, you don't graduate medical school and then suddenly you have this license and you're supposed to care for people and you have no support. You do residency for X amount of years. You do fellowship so that you're continuing to build those skills so that when you're at the point where you're independently practicing, you know all that you know and you're surrounded by people who you can still like ask for support when you need. So I think that's reassuring in a sense. It's very much like that lifelong learning is very true. But I think if anything, it's reassuring. But I never thought about actually how long it is because I'm just at the start now.
Griselda, did you think about that before deciding on this pathway?
I kind of had the idea, but I kind of accepted it's a lifelong learning journey. Yeah. I didn't get intimidated, but I just had to prepare myself of the long haul and like my parents had to like support me all the way through even after medical school during residency for some time.
I guess on the topic of support, students are also asking about like the financial burden. How did you face that? How do I prepare for that? Is it worth it? Who wants to tell me if it's worth it or not?
I think that's a decision that everyone has to make for themselves. I would say for me, it was worth it. I'm not gonna lie, medical school was much cheaper than when I went to medical school versus what Jane is paying in tuition right now. That being said, I did not come from a wealthy family, so I spent my undergrad and even in high school, like I had started working to make money to go to university, right? So going back to the first question about extracurriculars, like that somewhat limited my extracurriculars because really there was always a financial consideration there. So I think there is a financial consideration. There's scholarships, there's bursaries, there's loans, there's things to get you through. And then when you're on the other side, we are blessed to be very well compensated that generally speaking, you'll pay off your debts.
Hey, more med school questions. Let's see. Did anyone ever consider doing medical school in a different country? Because I guess a lot of people have been pondering, should I go abroad somewhere if I don't get it in Canada? No one has thought of that?
Well, I did my medical school, like
You
I'm from the
did.
Philippines, so yeah. And I think it's fine. Yeah.
Do what
It's a
works.
decision you really just have to make.
I guess connected to that, Griselda, a student did ask, what was the process like coming from the Philippines to Canada? Like, was it complicated? Did they accept everything you learned? How was the transition to Canada?
Right. So I did lots of eligibility requirement submission of documents from like medical school. My medical school, sending off all the documents to the CPSO here in Ontario, just to say that I'm eligible or I'm at par in terms of training for what is needed for the fellowship training here. I also underwent like a 12-week pre-assessment like PEEP program, just to like it's a supervised program that I have to pass during my first 3 months, so that my supervisor would have to assess if I am at par, I'm able to like function in the Canadian healthcare system. And that's what I had to do way back in 2023 to do this training. It was difficult, but it's doable. That's all I'd say.
You will survive it. Okay, I think that is the end of the general med school questions. Let's move on to other things. All right, so one student was asking, they saw two of you are heavily involved in research or did, I guess, the masters, etc. Why do you enjoy research? How is research relevant to medicine? They want to know why. So maybe Chriselle, you go first because you're doing still more actively, then we'll have Jane comment after. But
In terms of research as a question, is that right, Ornella? Yeah. So currently, I am fortunately working with a research team under my supervisor, Dr. Hannon and Dr. Zimmerman. They're doing early access palliative care clinical trials right now. I'm also involved in a global project, like a collaborative project with the Atlantis Global Palliative Care Observatory, trying to learn about development of palliative care across regions. And on my part, I'm doing specifically the one for the Philippines. I'm also part of a project in a quality improvement project in the palliative care unit in Princess Margaret, specifically about VTE or venous blood clot prevention among cancer patients, which is really important because sometimes there's not much research about how do we give when we stop giving like prophylaxis for blood clots or um, medications to prevent blood clots among these very vulnerable patients. So those are the main ones I have on top of my mind right now in terms of projects. But I'm also doing another related to education for transitioning for international trained fellows, actually, the ones who are coming in to the program at UHN and U of T in the coming year, 2025, 2026, how to prepare them for settling in Canada. So right now, those are the part of the research I'm doing.
a lot of different topics we're covering.
Yes, kind of.
So yeah, Jane, tell us, why do you think research is important for medicine? Tell us.
Yeah, I love doing research. I think it's the when you're working one-on-one with the patient, you're able to really advance their quality of life by whether it's prescribed medications or counseling or whatever that therapeutic relation looks like. But if you're able to like step back and figure out if there's something that can be changed about that medication or about the way things are done to prevent disease. So like cancer screening is a big thing and how they're able to create these guidelines is to get a group of scientists together and figure out what can be altered to improve things and coming up with a research question. And I'm sure like in your different high school projects, you've had to come up with a question, but these questions can be taken so far to advance healthcare and improve patient outcomes, and patients are living longer with certain diseases because either their treatments have gotten better, the screening has gotten better, we're able to prevent things before they get to a stage where patients have worse outcomes. And so that it's so powerful. And we call it like evidence-based medicine, where we're offering certain like guidelines for treatments that are backed up by clinical trials. And so I'm hoping to do a lot of that in my future career and residency as I look forward. And a lot of the work that I'm doing right now is kind of like planting those seeds in terms of what kind of research questions I want to pursue in terms of the fields of oncology or cancer care. But research is really cool. If you get the chance to do some of it or you're interested in it in undergrad, I recommend you take it. I think that's the best part of my undergrad was that I got to learn a bit about health research at that stage. And I hope you'll get the opportunity to as well. Whether you end up liking it or not, I know some people don't like research, and that's okay too, but I love it.
Excellent. Okay. What else do we have? Okay, one common question is, do you guys have a work-life balance? Do you have a life? I mean, I hope you have a life, but they would like to know if you have a life and outside of work. So, David, do you have a work-life balance?
I do, but like I think the thing with work-life balance is that people maybe expect that every day will be perfectly balanced, and like that's not the nature of the game, right? So there are some times where my life skews heavier to work. So like, the reason I'm in my office right now is like I literally finished rounding on patients and came here to be in the presentation, right? Where there are other times where, when it is my time for my family, then I turn work off. So like, there's a day-to-day balance that you try to achieve. There's kind of a longer term balance that you try to achieve. And like sometimes things have to tilt one way or the other. But like it is important to maintain that balance. Because I said, like, medicine is a career that has high demands on you and it can eat your whole life if you let it. So it's very important to like create those boundaries and really make sure that you take care of yourself.
Griselda, do you have a life?
I do. I'd say I still do. Like I enjoy like just last weekend I went to the museum from museum just to like detach myself from the hospital and see the other side of things. I also like swimming. I also like going like traveling, and that's my way of coping. So it's really important for you to know yourself and what works for you to maintain that balance that you have to be able to cope and manage the stressful environment that we have in medicine.
All right, and Jane, I know you do bubble tea things, but do other things?
Yes, I definitely would say I have a life. My medical school is pretty accommodating as well. So we have like personal days that we can take and absences as well. And the people who are like our seniors are also very understanding that we're at medical school training. So we make sure we get out at a certain time. So we can definitely schedule things outside of clinics and on the weekends and whatnot. So yeah, it's
This is good. We all have hope. You have hope if you go into the medical pathway. All right, more questions. I guess since you're now asking, like you guys have briefly talked about, you go through stressful situations, you have to deal with that. So how do you deal with kind of the emotional aspect of working in this healthcare field? How do you cope with talking with patients that might not be the healthiest individuals or need end of life care? So, Criselda, we'll have you go first, just arbitrarily.
Thank you, Ornella. So yeah, so in palliative medicine, well, all of our patients and families that we deal with really, really highly emotional situations because when people are referred to us, we meet them at the very vulnerable moments of their lives. They might have been diagnosed with advanced cancer, or they've been diagnosed with a very life-limiting, life-threatening disease that can end their life at any time. So it's in these areas that we tend to be in a space where they are so vulnerable and the emotions are very heightened. And there are times, admittedly, many of the times, that's why I'm still in training and I'm still training myself to be able to manage all these emotions as well that are being elicited whenever I meet a family. I just try to meet them where they're at. Like every time I meet them, there's no agenda. It's more about how can we be of support, because in palliative medicine, we are that added layer of support to patients and their families that deal with serious health related suffering. And we may be of help with their physical symptoms or their emotional symptoms, even just being there and listening is already therapeutic to them. On my end, I try to meditate, like do some quiet time. I try to balance it with, of course, we also do this group or team debriefing. We talk about difficult cases and patients together with the team who knows the patients and their families as well to be able to like process how did it go, how are we dealing with this, and how are we being objective at the same time, not losing that human part of being there as their additional care team. Yeah, and then also doing things that really will energize you and like focus on things that would would be of help to balance your emotions as well. Whenever I show up in every clinic visit to every patients and families, I try to like ground myself first and like do the pre-work, and then after that like process afterwards. So there's like a pre-work and then after like the briefing process every time, because it's really emotionally triggering and draining at the same time for me.
David, what about you?
Yeah, I think, I echo a lot of what Christelle said. Like, one of the big things we talk about in medicine is empathy and the ability to like connect to our patients and to connect their emotions. And, when you're doing work like Christelle does, when you're seeing people at their most vulnerable, it does take a toll on you, right? And I think you have to kind of find that balance between having enough empathy that you can be like, understanding with your patient, but you can't kind of go all the way down that pathway. So, like, for example, you might have to tell in my practice, I might have to tell somebody they have cancer, but then the next patient, I might have to tell a woman she's pregnant, and it's like the happiest time in her life, and it's like, I can't bring that energy from the last visit to the next visit. So it's finding that way to have that empathy and like really be in that moment with patients, but not go to the point where you can't kind of rein it back in when you need. I think what's helpful to kind of unpack that when you get to the end of the day is having good colleagues you can talk to, having friends you can talk to, whatever your resources are, to just really make sure you can kind of rebalance the heavy emotional load we carry sometimes.
And Jane, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree that this is the most challenging thing about being in medicine is um, having that transference, which is basically, we talk about this a lot in medical school about how you see either a part of yourself or a part of your family, or there's something in that person that you're connecting with that you resonate with deeply. And it can be very difficult when things don't work out, or, things are challenging, or you connect with them more than you anticipated you would. So a lot of the time, what I try to do is, like, once you get outside of the room or before you enter, just take a moment and understand who you need to be for this person, because they're also looking to you for a lot of support as well. And if they're crying, and it's sometimes difficult for me not to cry as well, but sometimes a mask helps. Like, you can kind of hide it a little bit, so you're definitely feeling for their situation. It's important to be empathetic. And I'm taking this course. It's called self-compassion for medical students, and the research program that somebody created, and they want to evaluate teaching medical students this mindfulness approach, how that can help us be better doctors without, losing a sense of ourselves and getting that burnout because you're feeling so much in these challenging moments. And hoping to go into radiation oncology, that's also very similar to palliative care in terms of those difficult conversations that are to be had. And so hopefully, as my training goes on, I kind of learn how to handle that. It's something I'm definitely thinking about and talking to my colleagues and classmates about as well. And we're all trying to support each other.
Great. This is great. We have tips you will learn and all of that. I guess let's do a happier then question on a happy side. What is like one of the best moments you have had in your medical career? I mean, it's hard to like pick one specific thing, but is there one thing that stands out to you that like you just think about now later? You're like, ah, that was a great thing that happened, or the great difference that you've made some way. So I'll give you like 10 seconds to think about it. Let's see who's
I can
nodding
go
at me
first.
first. Jane, yeah, Jane, go first.
So this happened 2 weeks ago, and this is not very dramatic. And you're all gonna be like, "Oh, this is a whatever moment," but for me, it meant a lot. So we had a patient who was admitted to our inpatient ward at the kids, and I hadn't met them before. I didn't, do the consult, or like, meet the family at all. I was actually tasked to discharge them from the hospital, and they had this like persistent headache, and the girl was really bothered by this headache for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the parents were really worried, like, is there something in the brain? Like, what's kind of going on? And they had seen lots of different doctors before, but I guess no one had really explained to them what was going on. And they were just told, everything's normal, everything's okay. But they're still worried, of course, because they weren't kind of talked to about these things. And then I had just shown them the imaging of her brain and read to them, this is what the radiologist, like the doctor that reads the scans, this is what all this means. And suddenly it was like that stress was just taken away. And they were like, you know what? It is going to be okay. We're going to see this specialist in X amount of weeks. This is kind of the plan. And it was just showing them the image and like taking that time instead of like rushing them out of the hospital because she was doing better. Um, and then they said, oh, like, thank you, doctor, to me. And I'm not even a doctor yet. But like that moment of like being able to provide that reassurance 2 weeks ago was something that I like, I've been thinking about every day. Like I want to provide that kind of reassurance to parents who are really worried. And because I want to work with kids in the future, like I want to continue to have that sort of relationship. So that's my moment.
It's a nice moment. I like it. Griselda, you're up next. What is your moment?
It's really a really hard question looking back. I've had many moments of that. In spite of this sad kind of vibe of what we do, we still try to make like have fun and like even with patients. Like I remember one patient in the clinic who was that like he was told he's cancer free, no evidence of disease after being like stage 4. And that's I think like and then he was so thankful to me and our team that we went through the journey of that year with him. So I think that was one great thing. And whenever he comes to clinic, he just like wants to see us all in person and just say, "Hey, I'm doing well. I'm back to work now." And those things. I think because I feel like palliative care, they say it's like terminal its end, but no, it's not. Here I've proven, like it's proven to me that even if you've been seen by palliative care, it's not the end. Like it's actually improving your quality of life, uh, even as you go through this very difficult journey. And I think that's a win. That's a happy moment that I look back to as well always.
Well, that's fantastic. David, what about you?
I don't know if I would call it the happiest moment. I would say like a very satisfying moment. So earlier on in my career, I worked in like northern Ontario in very small communities, and a lady came in a diabetic coma. Won't mean much to you, but like for my medical colleagues, like the lab called me and they said we don't know how high her blood sugar is. It's something over 100, and she was in kidney failure, and like she almost died several times during the admission, and like you know it being in an under-resourced community, like not even having the things that we have here, like it was remarkable that she didn't die. And then I always wondered what happened to her because after she was done in my hospital, I sent her to rehab. And then as I was kind of getting ready to leave that town, this little old lady comes kind of strolling up to me, and she's like, "You don't know who I am. I'm Mrs. So and so." And she's like, "Thank you for saving me." And she gave me a big hug. And I was just like, I like my job.
Oh, that's just like so sweet. She just found you. Okay, so we're kind of running towards the end of the session, so maybe we'll just do one more question and we'll wrap up. The last question is just, what is the piece of advice you would give students now as they're starting their career journey and like trying to figure out what they actually want to do if they do want to do medicine? So yeah, what is a quick little piece of advice you would give them? And again, let's go in order of speakers to make it simpler. So Jane, tell us, what is your piece of advice?
Don't give up. You might not see people who look like you or in your community who's doing hard things, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. I don't have anyone in my family who is in the medical field. I worked 4 jobs during my undergrad to afford to go to medical school, even with the like Dr. Isha said, it's very expensive. But I knew this is what I wanted to do, and so I had to work and I had to do it. And hard to compare yourself to others who have different circumstances, but don't let that just because you don't see somebody looks like you doing that thing doesn't mean you can't do it. Might be more challenging. You might have to kind of take a different route and do the MCAT multiple times, or not do the hospital volunteering because you have to work at McDonald's, but you'll still kind of get there. And you just have to be persistent and don't take no for an answer. I like that quote. if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. And I have that painting in my room as a reminder that like if someone tells you like you can't do something, prove them wrong. So don't give up, even if things don't work out necessarily. It's not a linear path.
Excellent. David, what about you?
I would say, like, ask lots of questions, find information out. There's a lot of things in the world we don't know, and there's a lot. But the beautiful thing about the world is somebody in this world knows that thing that you don't. So, like, the importance of finding mentors who can help you get through undergrad and medical school. If you want to do something, whether it's medicine or something else, like, whether it's engineering, whether it's computer science, like, find that person who's doing that thing you want to do, and, like, kind of like you guys are here right now, find those people who can help answer those questions for you, help guide you on your path. It's very important. You can often figure things out by yourself, but like having somebody who's done it before can hopefully help you smooth the path a little bit.
And Griselda.
I'd like to share, echoing what Jane and Dr. Esho said, but also like keep grounded, be always grateful, and have that um, thinking of always wanting to learn more, always being curious, always be curious, and don't lose that inner youth you have. And like when you know your whys, you'll know your way. Something like that.
A nice little ending statement. All right, so that is officially the end of the Q&A portion of the event. So thank you so much for our panelists for taking time out of their busy schedule. I mean, you guys saw their week in their lives, but thank you for making time for us and fitting us in on a random, I say Tuesday, a random Tuesday. So I'm just going to do a few wrap-up slides and also launch the exit poll. Just a reminder, you need to complete the exit poll for us to count your attendance. So hopefully you have been listening. I don't think the questions are too hard, but the poll should be launched right now. So do you remember the medical schools that they had gone to? Do you remember Griselda's specialty? Did you learn anything? I hope you can figure this out. But the poll is launched, fill it in, and I'm going to do our wrap-up slides. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my slides. Okay. So thank you for officially completing and attending the whole STEM Talks Medicine event. Hopefully you learned something new. If you do want to explore other careers and just learn more about what's happening in the healthcare field, feel free to check out our website, UHN-STEM-Pathways.ca. We host a lot of virtual events, but as well as in-person opportunities for students to come and shadow and see what's happening at UHN.